What would make you happy, bring you happiness, and what would make you fulfilled, that insight is very important.
The more you entertain it, the more it becomes a thundercloud that hangs over you, and that creates misunderstanding longer term.
And you wonder what's happening. Oh, are you okay? And they would say, no, I'm okay. No problem. It's almost like...
The ultimate goal is not independence. The ultimate goal, and I believe is the most mature state, is...
There's a certain kind of person you're dreaming about and you want to be with. But unless you are on the same level, and what kind of happiness or fulfillment you will feel after having that relationship or being with that person, you have to be...
And I always say to people, there's only one bill that you never should pay for, and that's the outstanding bill in your own life.
So I feel like I'll give that person the opportunity to get out of the relationship, so there's no stigma attached to it, so I won't get married.
Find your own pace. You run your race with your own pace, and the key is...
And you don't have to go to the future and imagine that this person will transform into someone else.
The better you are aligned with yourself, with your values, with your purpose, with your talents, that is highly attractive.
Welcome to Knowing Who You Are on the weekly conversations with Ershad and Marco. Hope everyone is doing great. As you know, every Tuesday, you have a new episode from this show. On every episode, we discuss a lot of interesting topic, and the topic we tackle one topic at a time. And both of us, from our experiences and also from our learned wisdom and how we've been working our own growth, we just try to discuss. So today's topic is really a very important one, a delicate one, and which I think both of us have tackled in a lot of different capacities as coach, and also when Knowing Who You Are, I've been doing for the last 5-6 years. And on the live streams and different shows and people I've talked to, relationship therapists and consultants, there are a lot of things that come out. And I think from our own life experiences as well, we can share a lot with you today. So let's start. And the topic, you might be interested to know what we're talking about. We are talking about the people we pick, the partners we pick, the chemistry and compatibility, how we confuse those things, and how who we pick as our partners shape us who we become in the long run. So let's get the conversation going. Welcome, Marco, as usual.
Yes.
And you're going to say, thanks for having me. And I'll say, no, I can't do the show without you.
Yes, thanks. Looking forward again for our conversation. I really
It's
enjoy
really
them,
fun,
you
yeah.
know.
This is one of my highlights of the week, you know, because it's something that you can hold a conversation with someone, but sometimes someone could be just like a sounding board. They're just listening to you, but there's no feedback coming, no challenge. And I like that challenge as well. Sometimes you would say that, Ershad, I'm not sure I can agree with you. That's nice, because that would make me think from a different perspective as well. And that's the way we grow, isn't it?
Yes. We grow by being thought-provoked.
Exactly. So I was thinking in terms of the romantic competence, let's call it this way. There could be ways. Some people could go to relationship therapists, or they could see a coach. After their marriage, they have been through this trouble and they see someone who's specialist in that field and who can help them. But I feel that it can be a bit late sometimes, because people have gone their separate ways for such a long time and they have been doing so much damage to the relationship. Sometimes it can be too late. And also, if you think about future husband and wife, try to educate them about what are the do's and don'ts in a relationship, what they should do in a relationship. I still feel this could be a bit late, because by the time they have already chosen their partner and they know who they're getting married to. So I think the better way to start the conversation, probably at a stage when people are at an age when they can start a relationship, say 13, 14-year-olds, 15, 16-year-olds. So they can start to build certain skills that would give them the romantic competence. Do you agree with that idea?
Well, that's an interesting take, because dating for somebody in the 20s is very different than dating for somebody in their 40s, 50s, 60s.
Even though it's different,
Yeah.
but unless someone is emotionally intelligent, so what they had been at the age of 14, 15, 16, they would be the same even at the age of 70, say, for example.
Well, I don't hope so.
Yeah, we don't hope so, but you will find like 40, 50-year-old kids as well in relationships sometimes.
Yes.
Because I was coming from a place of research, because it's been found. So I just ask you the questions. What do you think about that? Definitely, it's a difficult question, and everyone should have the different take. They discussed in that research that there's 3 skills to have the romantic competence, which is insight, mutuality, and emotion regulation. I'll discuss about this, but let's go back to you.
Well, emotion regulation is an important one because in working with lots of people from various big backgrounds, it's the poor modeling in their upbringing by their parents most of the time, and then other maybe people around them who didn't model enough or in a good way or in a healthy way how to manage emotions. So either people have learned to stuff them down, or they have been shamed because of feeling certain emotions like anger or feeling fearful. And so whatever is being conditioned in the upbringing, that starts to play out in your relationships. And not only, to be honest, in your relationship, also in leadership. I see it in leadership setting all the time.
Because those are relationships too as well.
Yeah.
The people around them with the team.
Relationship is multifaceted. So I do agree with learning to regulate your emotions. The sooner you learn that, the better.
That's why, I mean, in that research, they say that to have the romantic competence, these 3 skills, insight, mutuality, and another one that I was saying, that emotion regulation. So insight is especially, I think it's very important in a way that it's to know yourself. That
self-knowledge.
Exactly. What you want from your life and from the relationship and from that partner you're looking for. So if you first aware of your needs about your life, you're aware of your values, end of the day, what would make you happy, bring you happiness, and what would make you fulfilled, that insight is very important, isn't it?
That is important because I see that still a lot, to be honest, in my own dating journey that I'm on, but also with, of course, dealing with clients. I think a lot of people are underestimating, not making clear what their core values are. And that plays out in how they communicate. It plays out how they even set up their profile. I see so many profiles, and this is just from personal experience, from a male perspective then. And I know from a female perspective, I heard the opposite as well. So let's not make it gender specific.
Yeah.
But people are not making clear what is important to them. And if they make something clear, it tends to be external things, extrinsic values, not intrinsic values. And that to me is a kind of a problem, because it's the intrinsic, the internal values that basically will determine whether you really have a fulfilled life with somebody.
So extrinsic, when you're saying, is it more about, say, for example, it's related to your ego, and when you are feeling like having someone almost like a trophy, like what your friends would feel like, okay, you're with this woman or with this girl or with this man, or that person, everyone talks good about them, they are eligible bachelor, they have good job, and
I would describe that external. You're focused on the status, the success symbols, materialism, the position, the lifestyle.
Looks good on paper.
Yes. But interesting enough, I just read this morning, our society is so focused on the external value, what we value. How do we look? What do we earn? What do we achieve? And yet, that is the biggest cause of our mental health problem.
Mm.
And they discovered in that research that people who are intrinsic being guided, so just to clarify, the people who focus a lot of their time and energy on external values, they don't have the same time to spend on the internal values. And that's why it creates a problem with their mental health, and therefore it leads to addictions and substance abuse, you name it. But people who are focused on their internal value and spend time and energy on that, because you can't do both at the same time, you have to choose. They have much more better life fulfillment, their mental health is much better, and they are much happier.
And also secure, because what you mentioned there in that research, it's important that when you are externalizing everything and then you are losing touch with yourself, it's almost like a disease in the society that we don't have time to spend with and by ourselves. Like, we don't sit down. That's why there's a new book that came out. It's importance of silence and rest. That's what it talks about.
Yeah. Because
our brain has a thing called default mode network, DMN. Yes. So when we are not doing anything, it's doing its own thing. Yeah. A lot of things, daydreaming, a lot of things that happen. Yeah. But every time it starts the process, nowadays, we keep on interrupting it. Either we are thinking something internally, we are either picking up the phone, just a 10-second TikTok or an Instagram post, or reading something or doing something, and we try to do multitasking. We equate that with efficiency. Oh, I can multitask. I mean, there was a time when this whole thing now it has become quite like a taboo that you multitask and you're proud of that. It's not really healthy for your brain. But back in the days when people started saying this, oh yeah, I can multitask, and they would just wear it as a badge of honor. Yes. But how important is that when you spend time, just even if you are with a partner, everyone should spend enough time with themselves as well, by themselves, so they can have that insight. And this is what you're talking about in terms of the intrinsic. That's when you know your intrinsic values, what you want out of your life.
Yes, and that means slow down. And to slow down means, I would say, unplug. Of course, now, for example, I have my headphone on because I want to hear you clearly and focus on you. But I don't use it on the street. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that, because I want to engage with my environment.
Exactly.
I want to be present with my environment, because I've noticed that if I have my headphone on and I walk around with that, I'm not conscious of what is happening around me. It's almost like I'm insulating in my own little world. Mm-hmm. And I realize I don't want that. I refuse to play that. And so I only use my headphone for like this, or I need to focus in my writing, or, just have some downtime listening to music. But as soon as I'm with people, everything goes off. Because to me, it's important to be present. Yeah. So for me, I have this even phrase, less digital, more mindful. And that means for me, being present and slow down. And the interesting thing is, and this sounds maybe very counterintuitive, but when we slow down, we speed up.
Yeah. You become more efficient, you're more productive, yes. And you have better results. And whatever you do, the quality is good too.
Yes, and the Dutch have a phrase for this. In the Dutch word is niksen. And in English, you would say doing nothing. Uh-huh. And so it's the art of doing nothing.
Yeah.
And so there's no performance behind it. It's not, I have to achieve something in order to feel accomplished. It's basically really doing nothing.
Now, to be honest, many people are promoting it. Like, have a day of do nothing at least once a week.
Yeah.
At least half a day. Like, you're not worried about anything, and you don't feel guilty, and you don't feel lazy, less productive, just doing nothing, just sitting there. Even if you watch the rain, sitting by the window, whatever you're doing, but you're not worried about doing something. And if you don't do it, you feel like, okay, the day has been wasted.
Yes, but that's a lot to do with conditioning. But that's another topic in itself. But I think, going back to being present, why that is so important, if you can't sit in silence, even without music, no radio, no distraction, if you can't find it very hard to do that, what is that telling you?
No, I'll bring you back even further into the conversation, because we started talking about, and we drifted because we were talking about intrinsic and extrinsic, remember?
Yeah.
So in terms of the choices we make, we started talking about the insight that first, it's very important to know ourselves. The second one being the mutuality. In the research, they found for romantic competence, these three qualities are very important. So mutuality, it's very, I can give you an example from my own life. Say, for example, it's more about having the care for the other person as well, and their need, along with your own needs in that relationship. Say, for example, when Esther and I, we have a day off. I mean, she would like to have a lazy morning. We get up, we have breakfast and have a cup of coffee, sit together and talk, and sometimes have a little bit of lie-in, and then, but she also knows that I always want to, especially if it's a day off, whenever, even before work, I go to the gym. So on a day off, definitely, I would like to have the same routine. Even though this is a day off, I would wake up at 7:30 and go to the gym, get it out of the way. So I feel productive. I feel my mood has been lifted by doing that.
Yes.
She knows that. Even though she would rather have me there, spend that lazy morning, she would let me go. And she knows that this is important for me. And this is an example I can give you of mutuality, which is very important.
Well, it's recognizing we all have needs, and you need to communicate what your needs are, so that the other can accommodate, and it works both ways. And you need to communicate it, because if you don't communicate it in a couple's relationship, then how will somebody know? And this is where most of the time trouble starts, or resentment builds up, because there's an unspoken expectation.
I'm smiling because this is one of the examples of mutuality as well. Sometimes, when you expect someone to be a mind reader, and you expect them to know what you want, even though you're sometimes saying, oh, no, I don't want that. So I have seen people, and sometimes I've been with people where they expect you to know what they want without communication. They're not saying anything, and you suddenly feel that they are being a little bit passive aggressive, they're being silent, they're throwing tantrums, and you wonder what's happening. Oh, are you okay? And they would say, no, I'm okay, no problem. It's almost like, why don't you know that I'm not okay, and this is my problem, and you're not telling what the problem is. So the other person left wondering what is actually happening. So exactly what you just said, it's very important to have clear communication, and that's where the emotion regulation comes in.
There are three factors that cause misunderstanding among couples. And to be honest, also in leadership teams. And the first one is, which you all mentioned, is unspoken expectations. So people are being tested on something, they don't know that they are being tested, that they already failed.
Yeah.
So the second one is assumptions. That's a big one. Assumptions means you may sense something, but you're not checking it out with the particular person, because you assume that is the reality. And that is, most of the time we do that because we have a gap in some information, and then we fill it in with our own experiences, and then we think, it will be that. And that I see that in interviews, people prepare for interviews, or in couples relationships. So making assumption is a killer. Because the more you entertain it, the more it becomes a thundercloud that hangs over you, and that creates misunderstanding longer term. And the third one is jumping to conclusions, and that has to do, you're not really listening.
And from that point, if we get to the point of emotional regulation or emotion regulation, which is very important, say in a scenario like this, when someone is not communicating with you, and you didn't know what to do for them, and they end up getting angry. So this is a lack of emotional regulation. First of all, they didn't communicate anyway, but they didn't even realize that the other person you didn't communicate with is not their fault because they don't know what you wanted. But then if you don't have that maturity of knowing how to regulate your emotions, that's another thing that's lacking that could be a problem.
Yes.
I mean, along with these three things, as we said, mutuality, insight, and emotion regulation, there's another thing I feel like they're related to a certain extent, autonomy in a relationship. How independent you are, in a sense, you are in the relationship, but at the same time for the other person to know that you are an individual person, you have your likes and dislikes, you have your own world as well, so to speak. Say, for example, you see around me, this is my den. We were talking about it before the show. But there are times when I lock the door, I spend hours here.
Yeah.
But Esther is there, but she's at the moment, she's not sulking and sitting like, oh, why isn't he not spending time with me? She's doing her own thing, either reading, doing her artwork, or whatever she's working on. So that's another thing, the autonomy should be there. And along with that, equity in a relationship, because it's more in a way of like giving and taking. So in that relationship, because a partnership is like a contract.
Yes, but personally, I don't like the word contract.
No, I'm saying that because if you think about a partnership, when we say the partnership, because why I brought contract here, because of the term partnership. When we say in a business, oh, he's my partner. Say, for example, in this weekly conversation with Ershad and Marco, you're my partner here. Even though sometimes I don't agree, but I listen to you, that's the autonomy you have to speak on that show because the partnership, that's how it works. And then you're listening to me. And also we are disagreeing and without getting, emotional, like, okay, Ershad said, or you said something that I'm like, okay, Marco didn't like what I said or didn't agree with me. That's emotional, lack of emotion regulation. So that's where there's a contractual agreement which is implied. Both of us would have autonomy, both of us would have equity, at the same time, the emotional honesty as well. Let me bring this one up, even though we talked off the screen, because I was saying, Marco, sometimes when you're sending me messages, I might leave a quick reply because I'm at work or doing something else. And he said, Ershad, I know you enough, we know each other, so don't worry about that. So this is the emotional honesty, that I have that space here.
Yeah.
So same thing, if you just superimpose this one on a relationship, romantic relationship situation, same kind of contract, I feel.
Well, I will
agreement. Let's use the word agreement. If you don't like contract.
I would slightly phrase it differently, and that's more. It's more, how you said, influenced by my training. I think in the past, everyone grows up dependent, like a baby growing up in their, little child to their teenage years. That's the dependency phase that we all naturally will go through. Then, of course, we grow into independence, which is vitally important because in the independence phase, we start to recognize I'm me, you are you, and I have my own interests, I have my passions, I have my quirks. And you start to differentiate, which is very important because the differentiation means also we can say no to people. And the first one to say no to is your parents, which requires a lot of basic trust in order to do so, right?
Can you give an example?
Well, it depends a bit on the age. Let's say you're a teenager and the teenager begins to realize, oh, I have my own identity, so I want to watch this particular program. And the parent says, no, I don't want you to watch. So there's now conflict, right? Yes and no's. And that is part of the maturity process necessary because we in order to become independent, we need to know, oh, yes, I know clearly. Now here is where I feel a lot of people in their adulthood stay stuck. And I see it also in dating. Because the ultimate goal is not independence. The ultimate goal, and I believe is the most mature state, is interdependence.
Interdependence, but at the same time having the agency. Would you agree with that?
Well, let me clarify. Interdependence means I'm me, I'm you, but I recognize there's more power in we than me. And so I find in that a collaboration. I'm responsible to communicate my needs, my fears, my hopes, my dreams, my hurts, my fantasies, what have you. And the same responsibility lies with the other person. I will not assume unless you tell me. So there is this interdependence of recognizing we are individuals with our own unique personalities and preferences, but we also recognize in partnering we create a more more advantage, more synergy. And that's why I say when in a couple relationship, when the we is over the me, you have a strong team. But when the me is stronger than the we, it always creates problems.
That's why, like, a partnership is supposed to expand you. And because you are one, why are you becoming two? If that shrinks you and limits you and also make your world, rather than bigger, it makes it smaller, then I used to say that even before I had those training and before I knew from a very young age, I don't know, no one discussed with me, my parents, I didn't have that clear communication with them. Only thing I said once, it'll be for people to laugh at me probably. I told my mom when I was in high school, I told her one day, look, I'm not going to get married. And she's like, why? Why do you say that? It's not right. Because, you know, in the society and also their generation and where I come from. So I said, because look, I've seen people are not sure when they're in a relationship and they just put up with each other most of the times, even though they're not compatible. So I feel like I would get married to someone, and for me at the time, like, marriage is for life, as it should be. So, and for life I'm with a person, but probably that person won't like me the way I am and the way I behave, but they'll have to put up with me for life. So I feel like I'll give that person the opportunity to get out of the relationship, so there's no stigma attached to it, so I won't get married. I told my mom when I was in high school, and she was like, don't share it with anyone else, keep it to yourself. That was funny. I was a little bit mature in that way, but I had my justification and also the rational. But yeah, I mean, I started like that. Well, even though I'm married, by the way.
Yeah, I've been married, so I know the experience for over 20 years.
Yeah.
I think I think the confusion, I think sometimes I see even in profiles, and listening to people, and we have to then explore what's behind that. You know, if we stay stuck in our independence, even in a relationship, and people sometimes say, well, I'm fiercely independent. And I then sometimes thought-provoke it and think, well, what makes it so important to you? And if you dig a bit deeper, what tends to come out, the fear of intimacy, the fear of being hurt again, or being abandoned. And so and sometimes really out of survival, they had to learn to be strong.
Yeah.
Because the circumstances demanded it from them. And so this has become armored, this has become weaponized, and that has become part of life. And so when they come then into relationship with, I'm an independent person, that basically can become an obstacle for intimacy. Because for intimacy and team and interdependence to flourish, which is essential, you have to lower down your defenses.
You have to learn to be vulnerable too.
Yes. But you can only learn to be vulnerable if you know you're safe.
Exactly.
And if the person is not listening, and if the person is, you know, making all kinds of assumptions and they're not expressing that, and of course, those barriers remain up. And so I always say to people, there are two forces at play here. Love always seeks a safe connection. But fear always seeks to keep a safe distance. And you have to choose daily which one you want to be motivated by.
Nice.
Because if you're motivated out of love, and you may feel upset or annoyed or whatever, love will choose, I want to connect, I will not withdraw. I will not shut down. I will not become aggressive. I want to connect because I love the person I'm with. But if fear starts to dominate, then of course we play our tactics. We stonewall, whatever we do, we avoid, we ignore, we suppress, we shut down, whatever our mechanism is. And then of course that affects the relationship. Now, if you're doing that over time, that's why relationship then start to drift apart.
No, that's why if you're not feeling secure, as you said, and you are looking for your safety outside the relationship, and that's where you feel safe, then you have lost it. That brings me to that question that I can ask you now. So when do you think it's time to think that they're wasting my time or I'm wasting my time being with this person? Because people also feel like being together means that you're growing together and it's for life. And, there are a lot of myths.
For me, it comes back to really knowing clearly what is your vision, what is your why, your purpose, what are your core values that are non-compromisable. Because if they are being violated, it basically has a huge impact on your well-being and who you are as a person. So you have to be very clear about that. If you're not clear about that, and I see it on profiles, I know when I find it, and I'm thinking, well, what are you finding? And the reason why I'm saying this, because I have, in this case, a woman telling me, why do I seem to attract always the wrong type? And then when I ask them, dig a bit deeper, what comes out is they have not clarified their values, they have not clarified their boundaries, they have not clarified who they are themselves as a person, they don't know what their self-worth is, who they are in their own personhood, or what they are aiming for.
Yeah, so we tend to attract our unfinished business, like the things.
Exactly, because we connect on a level of awareness or consciousness. So if that's low, you attract people who have the same similarity. And let's be honest, and this is another way of how I express this. As you probably know me now, I like share things in metaphors. If you want to attract a noble king or noble queen, right, you have to cultivate a palace within.
Yeah.
But most men and women don't realize that their inner world is in a shed-like state, and they still expect a noble queen or king to be, attracted to them.
Exactly.
And they won't, because they can send it from a mile away.
No, exactly, because you need to become the person you want to attract.
Exactly.
So if you are aiming that high, but you have to see, have I done the work myself? Because there are a lot of the times the question comes up, what is happening? There's no men available, there's no woman available, and things like that. People are blaming the people outside, but rather than asking what's going wrong, where I am doing wrong, or where I could do better, what I need to work on. If you are not ready, because there's an interesting thing, it's almost about like manifestation. Say, for example, there's a certain kind of person you're dreaming about and you want to be with. But unless you are on that same level, and what kind of happiness or fulfillment you'll feel after having that relationship or being with that person, you have to be on that level of happiness that you don't have any lack. You're fulfilled now. So at that point, you're not waiting for someone to come and fill up that lacking that you have. So you already have that. When you have that, you automatically attract the person who are on that level with you.
But I again, as you know, I will challenge that a bit because I see, for example, a lot of people so focused on what we touched upon earlier on status, success symbols, salaries, houses, cars, positions, all that kind of luxury lifestyle that seems to be more dominant these days. And I'm thinking, but you have not the emotional skills, capacity to even deal with a conflict, and that's something I would look for. How is your conflict repair ability?
No, but that's the part we are not talking about. Like some people, if they confuse it with readiness, like, okay, I have a good job, I have a house, I have this car, I'm ready to get married or find a partner. This
You're
is the
not
next
ready
level.
to get married because that's just external stuff. It's nice that you have a nice home, a car, a job, whatever. But I can tell you this, the most successful business entrepreneurs look to their lives trail of relationship breakdown, that tells you they have not invested in their emotional, or I would call it then your inner palace, because it's still in a shed-like state.
Exactly. That's
and
nice
the problem with
metaphor.
that is you can't maintain a relationship when your inner world is in turmoil. So if you have unresolved issues to deal with your past, and you're not willing or ignoring it or pretending that it's not there or stuffing it, suppressing it, whatever your coping is, you're not dealing with it, you bring that baggage into the relationship. And guess what? The one who is marrying you or is partnering with you gets the bill being presented as if they have to pay for it. And I always say to people, there's only one bill that you never should pay for. And that's the outstanding bill in your own life. It's not your partner's job to pay for that bill.
No,
it's your responsibility.
We cannot expect someone to come and be the healer for something or the hurt they haven't caused. They have nothing to do with that, but you can't expect them to be the healer. They can support your healing process.
Yes, of course they will. Yeah.
You will be the healer for your own pain, and because it comes from a place when this person wasn't even present.
Yes, so but having said that, we do receive healing. I call it then more in a restorative way, and that's where you become coming back to interdependence. If you're co-creators, if you're co-allies, you basically become each other's best mates. And so if you know that let's say for example, you know that your partner has been hurt in the past by certain authority figures. You become an ally in a sense of how to give a different experience so that starts to override the previous one, so that they begin to realize, oh my gosh, this is so freeing, this is so different. I give you an example because this happened a few years ago when I went on a date, and we had a lovely conversation. It was just lovely, love meeting up. And I think there was a kind of tension rising between us, and I noticed that, and I just asked, "Tell me what's happening?" Because
you went on the defensive.
Not necessarily. I sensed the mood changing. Now I'm quite intuitive, so I pick up on these things. So I just asked her, I said, "What is happening?" And she basically started to voice, "Well, I feel a bit overwhelmed in what you were saying, and I'm not sure what to do with it." And what came out was, as we were talking about this openly and freely, that was for her a freeing experience, because previously it was always ignored, it was always shut down, it was not being able to be expressed. So for her, experiencing the holding space to basically express what she was thinking was like, and she thanked me, even though we didn't become a match, so to speak. I met her probably a year later, and she was engaged, and we gave each other a hug, and I said, congratulations, well done, so happy for you. But she always smiled because she had a positive experience. And I think that is what partners, I believe, are supposed to be doing, right? No one is
you
perfect.
Probably opened her eyes to the possibilities. Like what is out there.
So instead of becoming, because that's the other side of the coin, sometimes people become the reinforcer of the past negative. Now that's becoming a problem. And that's why people get stuck in bad patterns, choosing the wrong partners who have not done their inner work, are not aware, for all kinds of different reasons, are not dealing with it. And that can apply to any gender. And therefore it becomes toxic. But I believe, that's my view and vision for a relationship. It takes two wings to make an eagle soar to a new height. That means both add their strength, both and their investment in who they are, and are willing to do so because they basically choose you daily, you're the one.
You brought it back to that concept of, I feel, autonomy and equity.
Yeah.
I have spoken to many people, especially younger people as well, when they say that I feel left behind. One of the reasons is that their contemporaries probably already working some proper job, as you can call it, like after they have finished their universities, they're already working in those so-called proper jobs.
Yeah.
And they feel they haven't done it.
Yeah.
They're already with someone. They're already engaged. Some of them probably got married.
Yeah.
So they feel like, okay, I'm not in my proper job. So too, I mean, I love that. I love that term. And then I'm not with someone. I'm not engaged, let alone being married. So
Yeah.
I feel a little bit left behind. What do you
Yes.
think about that? How to address that situation?
Well, that's a painful realization, because that if you feel left behind, then indirectly you're comparing yourself with a certain standard that you feel you have to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it depends on the personal context. So I can't just basically say, oh, this is the script or something. But what is worth exploring, and that ties in what we already shared about, is, well, who are you as a person? Where is your identity anchored in?
Mm-hmm.
In external stuff, in your salary rate, in the amount of possession that you have, whether you have a lot of friends or not. Where is your identity anchored in? And the problem is, our society is I feel sometimes so externally driven on status. It's the consumerism, it's the materialism. If you don't have this, you don't matter. If you don't have this, then you don't look good. And I'm thinking, I'm good. I know my worth. My price is priceless. And I don't need a handbag or a suit to prove, or an expensive watch to prove that I'm worth it. Because I know my worth, I know my value. So for me, the question to explore is, who am I as a person? What are my talents? What is my superpower? What makes me come alive? What kind of thing do I want to contribute in this world? And start exploring that. And the interesting thing is, when people start doing that, they move away from all this comparison thing, and they start to realize, I'm my own person, I have my own voice, I have a contribution to be made, I matter, and that gives a very different energy, and I would say that is substance that for people who are looking for it is highly magnetic and attractive. And to be honest, much more, and I create a contrast here, than if you are chasing all the external stuff, but don't create the inner substance, and I would call that true charisma, because charisma in itself, I think, is, people confuse it. I would say charisma without character is empty. It's just a rainless cloud without water.
No, sometimes we equate with the loudness, like someone who's the loudest in the room.
Oh, that's not charisma.
Exactly.
The one who has the most charisma, you can sense it. They have substance within themselves, inner authority, I would call it quiet confidence. There's no proving, there's no performance, there's no I have to show off and I have to impress, because they're anchored in who they are.
But one way of looking at that as well, when people are feeling that they're left behind compared to their peers, I think it's important to know that figuring out by the age of 25, 27, they have everything doesn't mean always that it's closed deal and everything, they've found everything. Many of the times, because people felt that the society has given you this prescription and the timeline, you have to get this done by the time. And how we are talking about making the wrong choices, they could be stuck in a very bad relationship. And there is a possibility that this relationship, as you can see, they probably even have kids.
Yeah.
It might not last in the long run. So you're someone who's taking their time to figure it out and also working on themselves and the insight, who they are, what they want from life. They're taking the time to do that in the long run, even when they make their choices, even probably after the age of 30, 32, 33.
Yeah.
They might be better off making the right choices because they have done the work themselves rather than rushing towards, as you said, we put a lot of value on the external factors and what looks good from outside and what people will say, oh my God, they have made it. And
or external conditioning. And sadly, sometimes culture, religion, parental expectation, certain circles, even in the high circles where there's a lot of wealth, can be huge amount of pressure. You need to reach a certain standard, performance in a way. So all this external pressure create that comparison. And my challenge to everyone who is listening to this, find your own pace. You run your race with your own pace. And the key is run it in the speed that you are at that moment feel is right for you. And also, and that's the other side of the coin, surround yourself with people who believe in you, in who you are becoming, who are not referring back to all your past mistake and history and drama, etc. Of course, learn from them, but who basically believe in you and support you in your growth and encourage you accordingly. Because that's the other side of the coin. The people we surround ourselves with have a huge impact in where we end up. And therefore choose your people wisely.
This is important in a way that when you know yourself, what you want out of your life, you have to find those people who are walking in that path. So say, for example, okay, this is where I want to go, you already know, but they are already advanced in that path. So I should have them as their mentor or my guide, and we can see. But then you choose someone who's going in a path which has nothing to do with your journey. And then you're following them. As you just said, it's other way of looking at it. You'll end up in the wrong destination. You're supposed to go from A to B. You'll end up in D because you're following the wrong path. And B is left behind and you're totally misdirected.
Yes, and that's why I would, if you, and this is maybe also a call out, if you really feel like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling behind and I'm feeling stuck, then by all means seek help. And to be honest, it ties in with my own story. When I was young, in my 20s, I felt purposeless and I didn't have enough mentors or role models to help me find my way. So it has been a huge challenge. And I can really relate, I'm behind. I see other passing me by and having it all. And I think initially I thought, what is wrong with me?
But do you think it has stopped for you or for me as well? Because you definitely have people in your lives, and be it in the shape of relatives or your friends or well-meaning friends. I have that too. Sometimes they feel like, I think you could have done this, because you have this talent and you are so skilled. And why aren't you trying that? Because they have no idea about your journey, your plan, your vision, and they're telling you this. So even when you said that, growing up this, but it never ends sometimes. Even when you're at the age of 60, they're like, are you sure you're doing the right thing?
Well, this brings me back to, which as you know, I'm really passionate about, turning life quakes into life makes. Because the belief in what I help people in mastering is, life will give us disruptions. Whether you like to hear that or not. Life is not predictable. And there is not a linear predictable process and seasons that you can follow through. Life will happen either provoked by your own choices or imposed by you by factors outside of your control. And I think the key is, and that's what I've learned in all the challenges that I've faced over the years since my birth to where I'm now, how do I become agile? How do I reinvent myself when I'm faced with challenges that make me face uncertainties again? And age doesn't really matter. I think nowadays, even more, what you see happening around the globe, personally, I don't believe in retirement. I think it's not a good invention whatsoever. But anyway, that's a personal choice. because I want to be doing what keeps me alive and energized. And so, but that also means I have to reinvent myself ongoingly as I age.
Exactly.
But that requires, I call it transitional intelligence. That means I need to reinvent. I need to let go of old identities that I thought initially that serves me, but they no longer serve me. So I need to just find a new one.
We never stay the same person in this journey of life.
If you choose to. But the problem is, and this is where we go back to values, if your identity is, I have a high-paid job, I don't know, in the financial services with X amount of salary, and therefore you can afford private membership clubs and luxury travel and what have you, and you lose that for whatever reason because of an illness or whatever, or diagnosis or a breakdown, and you don't have access to that anymore. What I've seen, people feel completely lost because their identity is so wrapped up into it, they don't know who they are. And that's where I realize and I think that's what we need to pass on to the younger generation. Your identity is not in your external. Your identity is in who you are. And the better we are able to model that to them, you are special, you matter, you have talents, you have something to contribute. Let's find out what that is. And make sure you make choices as you decide, not me, you, that is in alignment according to what you want to achieve with that higher purpose, with the values, the things that are important to you, then see what's going to happen.
This is an ongoing conversation, even though we say that we have done it in episode 2 or episode 1, it will keep coming up, until however many episodes we would do in future as well. I think this is that creates the anxiety in relationship, where people get into the state of future tripping. It's the conditioning that when you're imagining, oh my God, will they be with me? What's going to happen to our relationship? Are we happy? Because when we are not working on the present, because all the signs, when we future trip, all the signs are in the present. When you share and you want to live the life that you want to live in future, how they react to it, your partner or the person you're with, you can see all the indication, all the signs are there. And you don't have to go to the future and imagine that this person will transform into someone else. And because most of the time we think, we have this lovely chemistry and we think that this chemistry is our compatibility and they will change themselves. And this is what they will turn into. We imagine because this is how we want them to be. But if we don't see the signs in the future and how they react to the kind of life you want and the vision you have for your life, then that's a clear indication that whether we are wasting our time with that person or not.
That is then coming back to clarifying your values. So for me, one of my core values is being with somebody who is growth-minded, wants to keep evolving and keep communicating, no matter what life throws at us. And that I've noticed that requires a mindset.
Even that growth has to be aligned, isn't it?
Well, I'm not looking for Mrs. Perfect, so to speak, because I'm not perfect, please hear me. But it does mean the values need to be somehow aligned, because if there's friction in your values, I can guarantee you it will create problems. But this is something else. There are two things I want to add. We get so hooked up in, I want to be happy. Esther Perel once made this statement. In the old days, people divorced because they are unhappy. Now people divorce because there's a demand to be happier. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. What happened with love? Because I think how we define love has a huge impact how we will view relationship. And I give you two examples, because that's basically out of real life. You have this couple who knew each other for 85 years. They were married for 75 years. They survived 2 world wars, persecution, hunger, challenges, you name it. And he wrote even a book, that's why I know. And he committed the book to his lovely wife. He said, to my lovely wife, happily married, we never quarreled. Now, I was very intrigued because I quarreled. What does that mean? Because I can't believe that they never had an argument. And then I realized there's a difference in quarrel and argument. Arguments, there's no doubt people will have, and that's not a problem. But to quarrel means you keep a list of complaints. And if he said we never quarreled, that means they had short accounts. They definitely would have arguments, but they kept it close. And I think that's such a beautiful statement. Now, Sid sadly passed away, and he sadly, a few years ago, he passed away. He was 105 years old.
Wow.
His passion was as contagious as a nuclear reactor, some of his friends said. And he was still active in life till the day he died. He was very well known globally. Now compare this couple with a high achiever couple, high earners, both big jobs. They've said to each other, oh, I found my soulmate, right? They go together, share a house, buy a house, eventually after 2 years get married, and 2 years later they divorce because, and of course there are other factors at play, but one of the fracture point was because they couldn't agree on a dog. For me, the question then raised, and I don't mean in any way disrespectful, please hear me, but the challenge I want to say to the listeners, what on earth are we really fighting for?
Yeah, that's a nice way of looking at
it. And to tie it with happiness, most people forget that 10% of our happiness is external. The 90% is internal. So what is that telling you? And yet the majority of people invest huge amount, if not billions, on that 10% to make us feel happy, that creates so much stress and depression and addictions and worries and death and what have you. And we don't spend enough time in how to improve the 90% internally, which is responsible for our well-being.
Yeah.
You know, so I want to bring that into perspective.
Now, that's very interesting how you differentiate the idea of quarreling and argument. Because there would be ruptures in relationships, and every relationship has that, they have to go through it. And when someone, say two people are together for a while and 6-7 months or a year, and they say that there's no rupture, it means that they're still on a very shallow level. They haven't gone deep and explored things together. Even I'll bring my example, because I feel like lived example is a good example for people to understand. And they will be thinking, Ershad, where are you coming from? Marco, where are you coming from? So we all have our experiences, and we are speaking from that and how we are working on it constantly. We all are work in progress. So even when I met Esther, we got together. Even before our marriage, we had been together for a while. And then during that time, there are things, because I didn't know her better, we're still learning to know each other better, and we are learning to be with each other. So there had been times when I misunderstood a situation. So, and then I reacted in a certain way. But thankfully enough, she is gifted with this talent of, you know, how not to be confrontational. And she created that space for me to be away, and she went away from the situation too. Just give ourselves probably half an hour or something. I mean, that's the only known rupture I can talk about. And after that day, everything became simple for us, and we understood each other so well that there's no issues like that. We just know where we are, what we're trying to say. But that was the only one in my memory in our 6 years together that she walked away, I walked away, we gave ourselves the space, but I felt within half an hour, what am I doing? I went back wherever she was. We got together. I sat down. I asked her, I said, look, I'm really sorry how I reacted. And this is what I shouldn't have done. I should have thought better. But rather than at that time, which is very important, people end up like, see, you are wrong. You start shaming them. Rather than doing that, she was like, look, this was the situation, and you thought that the situation was this. Not your mistake, because from outside it looks like this, and I didn't have the time to explain to you. Yeah, probably if we had spoken a little bit and we had the space to give each other the clarity, things wouldn't have gone that way. But I understand. So when you're coming back and accepting your responsibility and saying that you could have done things better, the other person that's how you repaired the rupture. They're saying that I understand where you're coming from. Let's try to find a better way of doing that. How do we do that next time if that situation arises? So that's the repair. And we have to remember, when the one person comes to the other saying that this is where I was wrong, I have seen many times that people would shame them and they would exploit it later on. Keep bringing it up every now and then, saying that.
And that creates a problem, a huge problem. And that's why, and this is going back to, how do I choose my partner? And I can't stress this enough. Choose somebody who has a willingness, at least, or it's already present, to have conflict repair ability. Because I can guarantee you this: conflict will happen, arguments will happen. Disharmony will happen as there is harmony, disconnection and connection. But where does the power lie? In our repair ability. Because the better we are able to repair, oh my gosh, your intimacy level will go through the roof. If you are both are willing and say, hey, oh my gosh, I really feel triggered here. It reminds me of something that happened in my past because blah, 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 blah. And I'm just projecting it right on you. And I overreacted. It was completely wrong. I need to deal with this. Will you forgive me? Please, I need to work on this. Can you help me? This is what I need from you. And let's move on, making it better. That's maturity. But that is a skill. And going back to, in our dating journey, most people are looking, well, do you have a nice car? Do you have a salary? And I'm thinking, I don't really care, if I'm honest, about that wallet size. What is your emotional size of dealing with these kind of capacity? Because that to me is much more valuable than the amount in the bank account. And I wish that more people would embrace that, because to make relationship work, you have to have these emotional skills. That is your best gift you can give to your future partner if you are in a relationship. And the problem I feel sometimes with society, it's so focused on external and is not paying attention on preparing even our younger generation. How do I cope with challenge? How do I cope with disappointment? How do I cope when I don't get my way? How do I deal with pain and sadness and loss? And if somebody is abusing me, how do I stand up for myself? All that kind of stuff. We are not learning that enough, and therefore, and the reason why I'm saying this, because I see it in my conversation, listening to hundreds of people.
We're creating this wrong image of perfection. That's the problem. And we are chasing constantly that wrong image of perfection, but we are not working on building something real that would be with us till the end of time. I mean, whatever, as I was talking about, that I might be alive until the age of 80, when you said you might be until 120.
120, I'm aiming for 120.
Bless you. And I mean, if I'm healthy and I'm enjoying my life, I don't mind 120. If not, then I would rather go before that. But that's a different conversation. Let's say, what would be worthy of that person that we want to attract? When I was talking about that, say, for example, you have to become worthy of that person that you want to attract. How do you work on that? How do you become worthy? And what are the ways of becoming that person? What kind of work we should do on ourselves?
Well, that's a good question. It starts with, what are you looking for with somebody else? And so once you have identified it, then ask the tough question, how much am I living this myself? So I see that on a lot of profiles. I want somebody who is emotionally available. I want somebody who is empathic or who is listening well. I think, how much are you really listening well? How empathic are you?
Nice.
And the only way you can test that is ask other people. And if they basically say, you always interrupt, you always hijack the conversation, you always downplay me, you always give advice, then it tells me there is some work to do here. So the qualities that you seek in an other, how much are you embody them yourself? And then if you find, oh my gosh, this really is a struggle, then start educating yourself on it. Start to seek help, whether that is through, if it's emotionally related, seek help through therapy or counselor, or you could use a coach like us. Because because I work with people, for example, with, oh my gosh, I have such a problem with boundary setting, and so we work on how to become more assertive.
Mm-hmm.
And the dramatic changes that in itself already begins to create. And remember, we all are work in progress. I'm a work in progress. No one is perfect. We all have stories. We all have patterns. We all have coping mechanisms. We all have wounds. We all have hurts. But the key is, am I willing to face it, own up, and grow up? And that is a quality, I would say, seek that in another person. And to illustrate it, and I don't know if I said that to you in earlier conversations, but I found it for me it felt such a provocative kind of good example. You in the SES, right? You're SES Special Forces trained, right? Or am I wrong?
Royal Navy.
A Royal Navy. Well, you're still a tough guy then. But I know from the SES, watching a documentary and speaking to an ex-SES, how you say that, officer, that in their recruitment, which is very rigorous and tough in their jungle training, etc., they look for one quality. You know what that quality is?
Tell me.
Oh, now you're curious.
I know there are many qualities they look for, but let me hear from you.
What stood out to me was they said, we're not looking for a superhero. We're looking for, is this a soldier? Listen carefully. Is this a soldier that will run into battle with me and has my back? And when I heard that, that's a quality you need to have in your partner. Is this a person that runs with me into battle in any conflict and has my back, is not turning against me, but we're working this out together?
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea
quality
we have, isn't it? When we think about an SAS recruitee or someone from the military or the Navy, that they will be this muscular guy and so tough and, you know, what we see on movies. But the thing is that even during my training, the people I work with in the officers training, many of them you feel like, okay, your idea would totally change. This is this thin person and they don't have any muscle or anything, but they have some other form of resilience in them, which will come in handy, and that's why they were chosen.
Yes.
So this is the interesting part, and I totally agree with you. Let's come back to this interesting question, because we touched upon it, but also I feel like people due to all this wrong image of perfection and also not being clear with their own vision, values, and what they want out of their life. Sometimes we tend to overthink love, thinking that is this the one for me, or there is someone else out there who'd be even better. And when do you think people have that kind of problem occurring, and what to do with that, and why do we have that? Like when we think that there's always someone, always someone better.
I personally believe there is not the one out there.
So either you settle for, you never settle on someone. You just settle for someone for the time being, but you don't really settle on.
Well, again, this might be very personal territory, so I will give my personal thoughts, aware that people have their own value system and approaches to this. But for me, there is not one person out there. That I think is a myth, and it also becomes, to be honest, put a lot of pressure on yourself, because there's only one person out there. I don't think that's true. I have to find that
person, right? I have to find it in this lifetime.
It's like, oh my gosh, it sounds already oppressive when I hear that. There are enough people out there that could be the person that becomes the one. When you choose them daily, you are the one. The key for me is there enough compatibility, value alignment, purpose alignment, companionship, interests. And for me, interest, by the way, it doesn't have to be the same either, because I feel sometimes people say, well, they need to like exactly the same sports club and the same this, and because otherwise it's a breaking point. And I'm thinking, well, going back to interdependence, if I don't like the football club, why on earth do I need forced into it?
But if they're interested in something passionately, no matter what that is, they will understand and value the interest of the other person. They will understand, okay, this is where they're coming from. Say I'm into music, I'm into whatever I'm doing. Esther is into art, and she has, and I have nothing to do with fine arts. I appreciate it, but I'm not into it. So, but
you appreciate it in the other person.
Exactly. So
and that's probably also why you were attracted to her.
Exactly. And I see it, to be honest with you, I still remember the first time, during the time when we were courting, she learned piano. She comes from a musical family. So she was taught violin, piano, which she didn't pursue later on. She was a ballet dancer too. So she started playing piano. And I just saw that. I was like, oh my God, this is the person. Because I'm a musician. And when I saw that, and she was playing the kind of music I like, and I heard that, and straight away, I was like, I want this woman in my life, It's almost like this. So this is the thing. When the interest doesn't have to be the same, not necessarily in my case, even though I see that, but on a daily basis, she's creating things which I cannot create. I have no skill in that, which she can. Like same when I sing or I play or I do things, she can't. She knows how interested I am, where my passion lies, and how valuable it is for me. So she helps or supports that growth or that work that I'm doing, I'm putting in. So that's what's important,
Well, you become each other's champions in the talents, in the superpowers that you both have. And that's why I think you become, as I call it, a power team.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful. Please don't become clones. And I think there's another thing to highlight, because I think it's important for listeners to hear. I think it's underrated, underestimated, but it's very profound and very powerful. Can you be yourself, safe with somebody?
Yep.
That's not the same as chemistry. Chemistry is exciting and whatever, but on the long term, it's how emotionally safe do I feel with this person? Can I be completely, utterly be myself? That means in my good days, bad days, ugliness, and what have you.
Or silliness.
And silliness, and quirkiness, and jokiness, whatever you want to call it. And is the person still with me? Like, remember this SES person?
Mm-hmm.
Is still with me because they basically, I love you to bits because of it.
Yeah.
I maybe feel annoyed at times, but you know what? That is not for me the dominant factor, because I know this is part of who you are. That makes you you.
That's a nice point.
But psychological, I call it psychological safety and emotional security that creates relational stability. That to me is more important than the chemistry, because the chemistry can be like a yo-yo. It can be some days you think, oh my gosh, the person might be hot. But on other days, you may feel like, where the heck is it?
To be honest, I doubt once that chemistry is an initial thing. This is how you get attracted to someone. And it has its moment. And most of the time, that's what the chemistry or the intensity, we think, oh, this is compatibility. Oh, this is intimacy. And we just totally confuse these terms and also the feelings, not the terms, the emotion that we feel. And say, oh my God, if I'm feeling this much intensity, that's the one. But the problem is going forward, when you realize that many of the things we discussed, like the values and also the person and how we look at life, the paths are misaligned totally, then the chemistry would never come back. You will totally
the chemistry is, I think, to put it in another way, character is what sustains a relationship. Conflict repairability is what sustains the relationship. Emotional regulation is what sustains the relationship. It's the chemistry, I believe, will even be activated more when your intimacy and your emotional connection get even stronger.
Yeah. When it works out that way. But say, for example, when you meet someone new, the novelty would always create a little bit of intensity here and there, the excitement.
Yeah.
Sometimes it keeps carrying on a little bit further, but sometimes then you realize, okay, when they start talking, you start talking to each other. No, that's not my person. I get it. Even though they're the most beautiful, most handsome, whatever, but it's not going to work out. So you can make the decision. But sometimes you can, okay, first date, okay, I feel like having a second one and the third one because the chemistry is still there, because things haven't been unraveled yet. And slowly, once... Problem is that sometimes people, before it can unravel, they get into a serious decision. That's the one. We get into a relationship, or sometimes people even get married.
Well, and again, this may be a touchy topic as well, which we can maybe use in another scenario. I think personally, and this might be thought-provoking for maybe some listeners. And again, I respect everyone's choices, but this is one of the reasons: leave sex out of it in the initial phases of getting to know somebody. Because if your relationship is based on sex only, I can guarantee you that is not sustainable.
Yeah.
If you can connect with somebody on an emotional, intellectual, spiritual level, and you found synergy there already very powerful, I would be surprised that the chemistry will not be becoming more blossoming out of that.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in just before, because I feel like, because I'm agreeing with you. And it's so interesting what you mentioned, because it reminded me of something. So I thought, before I lose that thought, I'll just jump in and please hold your thought as well. Hold your thought. Because when you talked about not to bring sex in the relationship earlier on, because the intensity you feel during the time, you feel that that's intimacy. And also... you talked, that isn't. And also you talked about the spiritual aspect, and it was a beautiful thing I heard. And I was surprised to learn that couple who pray together, they're stronger together, because the prayer and the best form of prayer is not we're asking for something, is we are grateful and we're expressing our gratitude. So beautiful. I mean, when I heard that, prayer means gratitude, expressing your gratitude. And imagine a couple, partners, are praying together, which what they're doing, they're connecting spiritually and expressing each other's gratitude towards life, towards each other, and how happy they make each other. I mean, what can be better than that?
Well, that's beautiful said. And I think it also highlights an awareness of, I'm not the god of my own universe. I have my own vulnerability. So there's also a sense of acknowledgement, whether you have a faith or not, but there's an acknowledgement of, I'm not in control. There are factors outside of me that I have no control over. So I share this with my partner, who recognized similarly. And I think that's beautiful. But the reason why I highlight leave sex out of it, which sounds probably very radical in our society, which is, I think, something so over-sexualized and sensualized, because the more hotter you look, the better you maybe get the hit. But then I argue, well, where's your relational skills? Where are your emotional skills? Where are your communication skills? Where are your listening skills? Because I will tell you, that for me is much hotter, much sexier. Because if a woman can listen to me or me to her, and we can empathize, we can cry together, we can laugh together, we can hold each other's pain in the midst of whatever has happened, that to me is the deeper intimacy that's, how would I say this? Of course, you have different levels of intimacy, but sex is a different way of intimacy.
Yeah.
And I think the other intimacy is so much underrated. And that's why, if you can be in the presence of somebody, even when you're quiet, not because you're quiet because you don't know what to say, or you feel awkward, or you want to shut somebody down, but this quietness of intimacy of, I know this person, and it's such a joy to be with this person. And even when we don't say with each other, it's just a great to be there. Now that to me is powerful.
I mean, trust me, we touched upon, I feel like today, most of the aspects of it. And going back to two more things before we finish. Yeah. One is, I wanted to share that feeling secure in a relationship, that you can be yourself and just whether you want to bring out your inner child, you can do that. And you want to be vulnerable, you can do that. You feel safe to do everything. Because nowadays, to be honest with you, I talked about couples who pray together.
Yeah.
Esther and me, we do cry together a lot. How? When we are watching a movie, there are certain parts, spiritually it connected so, there are moments, I know straight away when I would see tears in Esther's eye, I just look at her, just okay. and she can feel, she knows that she sometimes say, why are you looking at me? You know that I'm going to cry. You don't have to look at me now. But then I have tears in my eyes too, because the moment we both feel in a way, that's a beautiful thing in a relationship to experience. When you feel safe, you just don't have to worry about it.
There's no performance.
There's no performance. Exactly. You just be yourself. And when a person, you are on this earth and you have your unique personality, if you have to suppress that, if you cannot be yourself, what can be the biggest loss? And when you lose the biggest relationship on earth you can have, which is relationship with yourself, when you cannot have that one, when you're with someone, that's the biggest loss, I feel like. Then what's the point of that kind of a partnership?
Well, and this is where the problem starts, because if you abandon yourself in order to be with somebody else, and if you hope by having sex with them to keep them, that becomes a problematic relationship. So going back to soulmates, because again, I believe personally, you don't find your instant soulmate. You may find an initial powerful connection, but I'm more convinced you become soulmates over time because it's earned. And just like you said, you know each other now for 6 years, so you know each other in different scenarios. And now you already begin to recognize, she's going to cry now. That is what soulmates are becoming, because you get to know each other more and more on an intimate level. And that is different than when you were 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Right? We always talk about it.
So for me, soulmates is evolving. It's not necessarily instant. And I think people confuse it. I found my soulmate. And I will be honest, even people with affairs, they say, I found my soulmate, and then realize later it was a fantasy. Mm. So there is a misuse of this word as well. So it's more
it's commercialized. I would say it's commercialized. Like we have Valentine's Day coming, 14th of Feb. So everyone will talk about soulmates. The cards will be there. Every card would have the word soulmate somewhere. So that's why, because it has become a consumer product. The word itself.
Commercialized, monetized.
Exactly.
And let's be honest, Valentine's Day, what about the singles out there? Maybe we need to have a hug day for all the singles. Because sometimes I think, this is the other side of the story, a lot of people don't recognize that, I heard this a few times, there are singles walking around and they have not had a hug in months or even years. And I think couples sometimes, I don't mean it in any negative way, but sometimes underestimate they have access to each other to give each other hugs and wholesome affection. But a lot of singles who don't have that. And I wonder sometimes,
now you're making me feel bad. Speaking about sharing.
Okay, what is that triggering to you then?
No, I'm joking.
Oh
my God, what have I done?
No, this is amazing. Please don't, it's not about blaming. Please hear me.
No, I know.
It's more about awareness, and this brings more the humanity in the perspective. That's one of the reasons why I love talking to strangers, because you never know what somebody's story is. And I will be honest, I had talked to strangers at times, sometimes 2 hours, 3 hours. An interesting thing is, after the conversation, we shake hands or even give each other a hug. And then we parted ways, and we may never see you again. But that, to me, is what humanity is all about. And I think, going back to Valentine's Day, of course, you fill in what you want to do with it. I just highlighted a lot of singles out there who don't have it. But, anyway.
No, that's a good point, because it reminds me, once I came back from my country after my father died, And one of my colleagues, she was telling me, she was like, how are you feeling? I said, yeah, and I was going through a lot at the time mentally, and I was stuck there for 3 months going through a lot of logistical nightmares. So when I came back, I was almost like very much broken. I was feeling broken. Probably, I don't know if you've seen me during that time. So I was at work and she was like, Ershad, do you want a hug? She knows that I have my partner and everything, but she still felt that how important it is. And she's quite younger as well, but she has that maturity of knowing that how to comfort someone. She was like, do you want a hug? And on a similar instance, what happened to another colleague of mine, one day I found her crying. And I was like, what happened to you? And she's like, my boyfriend just texted me and he broke up with me. And I felt so bad. And how she was crying, felt, oh my God, that person looks so vulnerable and so innocent as well. And how how much heartbroken she was during that time. And I gave her a hug. And she literally melted. Because at that time, that's what she needed.
Yeah.
Like she could tell someone that, look, it's hurting. There's so much pain. What can I do with this? Yeah. So that's why, I mean, when you said that how important it is.
It is, and it reminds me of my own story many years ago. I went through a huge crisis, and I was really basically crying my eyes out. Very painful. And there was then also a woman I knew the husband. And the woman came to me and basically did the same what you said. She just gave me a hug. And you know what? That's all I needed. I didn't need to hear words. I didn't need to do anything. It was just a human touch of, I see you. And acceptance. And I think and of course, please hear me. We need to do this appropriately, consciously, respectfully, with dignity. Because I don't want to give any wrong intention or indication, out there. We need to do this carefully. But we must not underestimate that if we are doing it genuinely, it's powerful.
Because we were talking about connection a lot last time we did it, yeah.
Yeah. So, concerning our talking about dating, is there anything to say on the last note?
On the last note, you remember the movie Indecent Proposal?
It rings a bell.
There was a young couple, and they were going through financial trouble. At the time, there's a millionaire who offered, $1 million to spend one night with Demi Moore. She was the actress.
Oh, yes, yeah. I can remember.
And she came back, and the partner let her go with that man. Whatever happened that night, no one knows. It wasn't shown in the movie. But when she comes back, I think it was the guy who offered the money or someone. The dialogue was there and it stuck with me. I was very young when I saw that. Yeah. It was said that when you love someone, you let them go. If they come back to you, they had always been yours. And if they didn't, or if they don't come back, it means that they were never yours in the first place. So that really stuck with me. Like, okay, you love someone, you let them go. I mean, this is part of it too. Many people don't understand. And sometimes we think being in love or loving someone means always holding on to them no matter what. Okay, I won't let you go. You're mine. But there are times when it's important to let it go for the well-being of both parties.
Well, that's an interesting point and a good point to highlight. I would flip it in the other way around. Mm-hmm. As soon as there is control going on, that's not an expression of love. Because love doesn't control.
No, because we feel guilty at times leaving someone. We feel like, we had some good times and this person is dependent on me. We forget about ourselves, our well-being. And sometimes if you choose to stay with that person who's not good for you, end of the day, you're not doing any favor because you're not good for that person too. There's no love. You are there just out of responsibility or sympathy, or just because you are a good human being, you're soft-hearted, you don't want to break someone's heart, and you're there. But you can't give them, as a partner, what it should be. And also you're not getting it for yourself. And we have limited time on earth. And to live a fulfilled life is important when it's not good for us, and when we realize that it won't be good for both of us. I mean, any partner I'm talking about when I'm saying us, I think it's time to let go. And if then you work on yourself, or if there's someone, as we are saying, not the one, but the one that you can attract when you have worked on yourself and when you clear about what you want from your life, this short span of life you have on earth, whatever you want out of that, when you have the clear vision about that, I think then you will end up attracting the right person.
Well, I think if that's the core desire, because I also am aware there are people who don't want to have a relationship for all kinds of good reasons, because of personal reasons. So I don't want to impose that to anyone.
That you have to have, yeah.
That you have to, because that's the other side of the coin. Because I know in certain religious circles, it's more promoted that if you are not married, then basically you're second level,
like the monks.
Citizen.
Yeah.
Which, of course, I believe is ridiculous. So let's clarify this. Regardless of your relational status, whether that's being married in a partnership or single, widowed, divorced or separated, forget that for a sec. You are your own person. And regardless whether you want to go into a relationship or not, the best gift you can give to yourself and a future relationship or friendship or in leadership, you can fill it in, is work on your own inner world, because the better you are aligned with yourself, with your values, with your purpose, with your talents, with your environment where you feel you thrive the most in, that is highly attractive. And that is your responsibility. It's not your spouse or your partner's responsibility. They can support you in it, champion you in it, and be an ally in that. And this is, of course, amazing. But that agency is yours. And I feel sometimes when people start to outsource that to their partner, that's where codependency kicks in. That's where imbalance kicks in. That's where you get the mother figure or the father figure in a relationship, which is basically creates problems. It's becoming secure in who you are. People have touched upon, what's my attachment style? Anxious, avoidant, or anxious. And I'm thinking, well, regardless, work on your being secure. Because that will benefit everyone.
No, it's very important to have the relationship with yourself. You have to be clear about this. It's almost like not to make light of it. You're going to a restaurant, a menu is given to you, and you're asking other people, can you choose the food for me?
Because I don't know.
I don't know, because I don't know what I like. And they have chosen that, whatever dish they have chosen for you, and you eat that, and you're like, oh, I don't like that, I hate it. That's going to happen because you, even though you don't know, but your taste bud is conditioned in a certain way. You grow up with certain taste buds, and there's certain culture you grew up in, probably the kind of food you like, whether less spicy, more spicy, a lot of things, a lot of factors. So if you give that agency to someone else and you don't know what you want, then you will end up in a disaster. That's inevitable.
Yes, and that's why it's so important, and this may be a good concluding thought to listeners. Rise in your own leadership, find your purpose, live your why, get excited about it, start living it, start doing it. And if you are open or want to have a relationship, then don't start chasing it. Don't start, swiping in order to find it. It's just positioning yourself. Here am I. I'm happy in who I am. Oh, yeah, and this is the thing that came to mind. You will not find solace, even not in a palace, if you are not at home in your own skin.
Nice.
So learn to become at home in your own skin. And if that makes you at the moment uncomfortable, don't judge yourself, don't blame yourself, don't shame yourself. Just basically highlight, okay, then I need to, what does it tell me? What do I need to work on?
Nice, Marco.
And, because... And surround yourself with people who are safe, who can help you then becoming that you feel home in your own skin. Because if you're not at home in your own skin, that also means you're going easily to source it out elsewhere, to find a home. And then you don't create a home, it creates, an airport.
Very nice. I think, Marco, after that, how you ended it, I'm not going to add anything more to it, because I think you said it all very nicely. You rounded up. And I think we touched up on a lot of aspects. And I'm sure it would make people think, rethink, and consider different aspects of whatever stage of the relationship they are. So, on that note, I think we would like to finish this week's episode of Weekly Conversations with Ershad and Marco. We are definitely enjoying it, and let us know by commenting, and also let us know by suggesting what different episode, what topic we can tackle later on. So, as we always say, let's have a good one. Have a good week.
Yes, you too. Okay, cheerio.